Welcome to God Encounters. We're so glad that you've joined us today. Today my guest is Tani Zarelli. Tani lives in Washington and has 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. She's been a foster parent working with at-risk children, was also a court-appointed special advocate in Clark County, Washington. She has a very diverse background with over 25 years leadership in nonprofit, for-profit, and political sectors, from small businesses and local fundraising to international campaigns. She's personally orchestrated countless events and seminars, conferences, including a U.S. Convergence, which was a 3-day international conference which featured prominent leaders from both the U.S. and Israel, including U.S. senators and high-ranking Knesset members. She's also been a guest on radio and TV in both the Christian, Jewish, and secular market. She gives a clear message of support for Israel, shedding light on the truth in current situations, hoping to dispel common myths that many Americans believe about Israel. Tani has focused her skills on helping Americans establish stronger ties to Israel, believing that both countries can form a stronger relationship through direct communication and interaction. Well, thank you for being on the show today.
It's my pleasure.
Yes, wow, you have quite the busy lifestyle.
I do. It changes.
Yeah.
But it is a busy life.
Yeah.
God tends to do that with you.
Yes. Before we get started, could you share a little bit of your background with us?
Well, my background would be that I was born and raised in Washington State. My father was a first-generation American.
Oh.
His parents immigrated from Norway. Oh. So I have kind of an immigrant background. My mother didn't know where she was from. She had no clue. But through a God encounter, I would find out a little bit more many years later.
Wow.
I was raised in a wonderful home of faith and conservative values. My father was a Marine, so how can you not have conservative values? I had, a pretty normal, happy, rebellious, sometimes childhood. I later married and spent my years raising kids. Then we became foster parents, and my husband became a Washington State senator. And that's when life really took a big change.
I'm sure.
Yeah. So
wow.
It's just led me on many journeys.
Yeah. I want to backtrack just a little bit to when you were age 15.
Yeah.
You have quite a story, and so I know there's a video that we want to show. Is there anything you want to say before we show the video?
No, I think it really reveals, the reveal is after the video.
Okay, perfect. All right, let's roll that video if we could.
When I was 15 years old and in love with my first real boyfriend, I woke up one morning feeling something was different. Could I be pregnant? What should I do? My high school counselor told me about an organization that would help girls in trouble, like me. She stressed that it was all confidential. I remembered that my father was building a home for the local clinic's director. I found her number in my father's files. At the clinic, I was given a pregnancy test. The result came back. I was pregnant. Now I knew I was in trouble. I left the clinic with the name of a doctor in Seattle, scared and confused. How do I tell my mom? I don't want to disappoint my parents, but I was given no other option. Nervously, my boyfriend and I arrived at the Seattle clinic. I was escorted to a dark and cold treatment room. I was told to get on the table and lay back. Without an exam or an ultrasound, the doctor began. I remember violently shaking, hearing loud suctioning. The next thing I remember is looking into a petri dish and hearing the doctor say, "This is what you did." What I saw was a tiny baby, all torn apart. Until then, I didn't understand there was new life in me. What did I do? I grew up in a home of faith and conservative values. This wasn't the way I was raised. Years later, after getting married and starting a family, I was still troubled by that fateful decision. Then one day, I fully gave my life to God, and I knew He had forgiven me. But it took years before I realized I hadn't forgiven myself. I became a foster parent, helping many teenage girls. We adopted a baby that was abandoned in a dresser drawer. All my daughters grew up to become mothers, and I got to witness the births of my grandchildren. The memory of having an abortion will never go away, but my experience helped me to help girls in the same hopeless situation. I have been able to share my story of hope with many others, even with the Washington State Legislature, helping pro-life organizations continue doing what they do today. When I look back, my life has been surrounded by children. I would have never imagined where life would lead me today. I now have the opportunity to tell young women that there are other options than the one I had when I was 15, giving them hope and love and the option that they will never hear the words, "Look what you have done." That is my story, and I don't want anyone to go through what I did.
Wow, that is quite a story. And I commend you for doing that, because I think it's going to bring healing to a lot of people that have had to go through that type of challenge.
Yeah,
in their
it was a God calling. I lived a very public life, but there were moments in time where God said, "I want you to take your private life and make it public." And sometimes, I will still tear up because that is something I ache for young women. Yeah, I ache for them.
Yeah.
Because I know the pain that they go through.
Yeah.
I spoke at an event a few months ago. It was a little over 100 men that were there, and it was a room filled with them. I didn't know what I was going to say. I had no clue. So I spoke from my heart. And I not only shared my story without saying it was my story, but I shared the story of what's now my former husband. And there was not a dry eye in that room. And men came up to me telling me about how they were adopted. They came up to me telling me about their wives of 40 years, who were still struggling emotionally because of a choice that they made a long time ago.
Wow.
So it's that burden that you will carry to forgive yourself. And once I forgave myself, then it was so much easier to share the story, hoping that women will be able to be healed and forgive themselves so that they can have a beautiful life, because it is
Wow.
it is a burden to carry.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
But you feel you've gotten healing from it, and
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is something now I can look back and I can see how, there's a song about beauty, from beauty to ash, or ashes to beauty. I can't remember, but this is a story of true ashes, and God has made something so beautiful, because my life journey, unbeknownst to me, it wasn't until recently that I actually saw, it was in creating that video that I saw what God has done
Wow.
over all these years.
right.
Being a foster parent and having my own children and being a grandparent and impacting. Kids have always been something, being a CASA, just all those things. Children have always been something that's been a part of me.
Yeah.
And
That's awesome.
yeah.
Well, so do you feel that's partly why you became a foster parent, was because your heart for children and
Yeah.
the loss of one, kind of, there's just something there, that there's a nurturing in you now that you just feel the need to pour out more, do you think? Or
No, I don't know, because quite honestly, I never, after going through what I went through, I had to bury it. And until when I was, 16, 17, 18, I was the kid that always brought all the kids home. And especially kids in difficult situations.
Yeah.
So I always brought them home to my mom. And, but when I was about 16, 17, 18 years old, I just started learning about foster care. I mean, at such a young age.
interesting.
And when my husband and I got married and we moved to Clark County, I just one day woke up and said, you know what do you think about becoming a foster parent? And so it was for teenagers. Is that actually what we did? I went after teen girls.
And that's tough. That's tough.
That's very tough.
Wow.
It's very tough, but they were great. I mean,
wow.
it was wonderful.
It's not for the weak of heart.
No, so I think being a foster parent was something, I think this has been birthed inside of me since the time I was created.
Okay.
I just took a little path
Okay.
that was actually taught to me. And that's the whole message in that video, is that I felt like I was in trouble. And, it was the 70s, so nobody really, we were on the heels of the 60s. So when it came to sex, it was a free-for-all. You were taught that you did this, except for I had different values.
Right.
And when you did find yourself pregnant, then you were in trouble. And the only place you were told about was the place that did abortions. And so you didn't get a choice then.
Yeah. Wow. So when along the line did Israel come into the picture for you?
Gosh, Israel came into the picture in 2006. Nope, 2006. It's kind of a journey is what it is. My father, as I'd said, had been a Marine, and he served in the Korean War. And I was surrounded by family of military, hearing stories of war, and I understood war. Well, on the day of 9/11, my husband did something that was totally abnormal for him. He got up and he turned on the TV in the bedroom. And at that moment, I saw planes go into the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
And I remember being shocked, and I started to pray. And as I began to pray, it was like the whole world went away. I was just in a zone praying, and I remember hearing a report that a plane was heading toward the White House, what they believe was toward the White House. And I remember praying and just pleading God to be able to allow people to call their families, to get in touch with their families, to say goodbye. I didn't understand why I was praying these things. And I prayed for men to rise up and be able to take down that plane, if taking down that plane was what had to happen in order to save our nation.
Right.
And I was just praying and praying and praying for this, and I could see it. I literally could see the inside of the plane. I could see everything that was happening, and it didn't make sense to me. But it would be later on. I owned a bookstore that a book would come out about the man who stood up and fought, and the other men that helped. So from that point, years would go by, and quite honestly, it's kind of a corny story, but it's a God encounter.
Okay.
I started to feel this sudden urge one year, that would have been 2005. Yeah, 2005, to go to Savannah, Georgia. Had no clue why. I had absolutely no clue. And I just kept saying, you know, I got to go to Savannah, Georgia. And but everybody, my kids, my husband, they all looked at me like I was nuts. I said, I know. I don't know why. I have no clue. And the more time went by, the stronger it got. In the summer of 2006, it became very strong, to the point that I said in front of friends, we were talking, and I said, yeah, I got to go to Savannah, Georgia. And if he doesn't take me, I'm going by myself. Which was a very strange thing for me, because I wouldn't travel without my husband.
Yeah.
In October of 2006, I was in my office doing some stuff, and my husband walks up and he says, hey, I just got a call. And I said, really? And he goes, yeah, I was invited to go to a conference on American and Israeli relations. And I said, oh, gosh. I go, you should go to that. I said, that would be fabulous. And he says, well, I think we're going to both go.
Savannah,
and I said,
Georgia.
why? I said, exactly.
Wow.
He goes, it's in Savannah, Georgia.
There you go.
So he would not have gone to that conference had I not been desiring to go to Savannah, Georgia.
Interesting.
And I normally wouldn't go to some of these conferences with him.
Yeah.
So God was just he was putting something in my heart that didn't make sense.
Yeah.
But he kept it burning and burning and making it so strong that I was willing to move mountains to go.
Yeah.
And he had a purpose in it. And that was, at that conference, we were the outsiders coming in. And my eyes and my ears were opened to what has been happening in Israel, the battles that Israel has had, the learning about their education system, learning about life in Israel, sitting at night and talking to all these Israeli citizens and government leaders, and listening with one ear to the Hebrew language, and almost feeling like you understood it when you didn't know the language. But then watching them try to make a translation in English to us, and feeling that little bit of I like you, but I don't trust you yet. And night after night, we would meet with them, and then the final day of the conference, final night of the conference, a brigadier general got up and spoke, and he spoke English, but he spoke with a very thick accent. And of course, because he was a brigadier general, my ear is more attuned because of the military side of things, and I'm listening to him very, very intently. After he was done, after the evening dinner, all these Israelis started coming up to me. And the thing they were doing is they were looking, they're going, you were really listening.
Wow.
And I said, well, of course I was listening. No, you were really listening. And I'd be like, well, I don't understand. And they go, no, you don't. People come here and they don't listen.
Wow. So they even noticed.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that all eyes were on the table I was sitting at. And later that night, there was a reception, a final reception, and at one point, I can't think of the name of the song right now, but the most traditional Israeli song, and a circle began, the dance began.
Oh.
And I was standing there, and I had a little glass of wine in my hand, and one of the brigadier generals comes along in the circle, and he says, come dance with me. And I said, oh, no, that's okay. And I hear this voice, go, do not offend.
Oh.
And I sat my glass down, and I said, I don't remember how to do this dance. And he goes, 1 foot forward, 1 foot back, takes my hand, another Israeli takes my hand. We get halfway around the circle, and a shot of electricity ran through both my arms, my hands, and there was this overwhelming sensation of love and connection. And that night I got on the elevator and I said, Papa, what do you want me to do? And he says, I just want you to love them. Just love them. And I said, okay, I can do that. That's easy. And the next morning, we gathered for the final breakfast. And afterwards, every one of the Israeli government leaders that was there and leaders from different organizations came up to me and said, come to Israel. Would you come and visit us, please?
Wow.
And
open invitation.
It was just,
That's
now, what they didn't know was that I would do it.
Right.
And on December 31st of 2006, I landed in Israel with my husband and another couple.
Wow.
And we went to the Knesset, and I knew at the end of the conference that I needed to do I needed to host a conference, and people needed to hear it. So here I was in Israel now, and I go to the Knesset, and it still makes me emotional because it was so powerful. And it's only a God thing, you know. It's the God things that make me tear.
Sure.
We went up to the one Knesset member, and he looked at me with just a stare, just this blank stare, like he was in shock. And then I said, "Are you okay?" And he goes, "You're here." And I started to laugh. I said, well, of course I'm here. You asked me to come.
Yeah.
He goes, no, you don't understand. So it's a common thing. No, you don't understand. And I said, no, I guess I don't.
Wow.
And I said, tell me. And he goes, we invite a lot of people to come, but they don't come. And I'm like, well, I'm here. Now I want to know. I want to understand. And so it just went on. And at the end, I met BB and sat with him and talked with him, and met the president of the Knesset at that time, and just various different people, and invited them to come to Washington for a conference. They're like, you're kidding. You're going to do this? And then they were shocked when I did it.
Cool. So you were establishing relationship, which is the only way to win people, right? Is through relationship.
It is.
So that's great.
It is. And that, you know, what's funny is that's what God knows. So all along, God's just putting on my heart. And I had already thrown my arms up in the air years before that on a walk. And I threw my arms up. I said, Papa, I'm so tired of being afraid to do anything. I said, you know, I'm bringing my arms up, and I don't know why, but I feel like I can fly. And I said, I just feel like I'm flying. And I want to go where you go. I want to do what you do.
That's good.
And I want to say what you say.
It's good.
You know?
Yeah.
Here I am.
Yeah.
And from that point on, that's where the freedom came, to be able to go and just do these things. And it would be years later, I'd be driving to Jerusalem on the highway in Israel and going, oh, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I'm driving on the highway like I own it, heading to Jerusalem to have lunch with friends. Yeah, no.
I can't wait for that feeling. I'm going in a couple months. So I'm
You
excited.
are?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. With our mutual friend, Milton. So,
Yes.
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 So very exciting. So what would, we kind of bypass this, but how would you say God speaks to you most?
It might sound weird, but I hear his voice. I know the difference between my thoughts and his voice. I know where his voice comes from.
That's good.
And I'm very clear. But yeah, I hear his voice.
Nice.
And yeah.
And it sounds like he goes out of his way to put deep impressions in you too, as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, discernment is, I can discern.
That's good.
I have good, very strong discernment.
That's good.
Very,
Yeah.
It's led me well now
That's
in being
good.
single.
Yeah, that could be something you could teach a few people, but yeah, that's good. That's really good. So we're going to go into a part 2, if that's okay, because you have other stories you can share with us, correct?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go into a part 2. And so I want to say thank you to all of you that have tuned in today for part 1. We're going to go into a part 2 with Tani and hear a few more God encounters that she's had in her life. And I pray they bless you. So thank you for joining us today. Bless you.